Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2022 Law Women Alumni Reception. Even virtually, this event is an exciting one for Law Women each year. We always look forward to this time to both celebrate an alumna who has done groundbreaking work in the legal field and to come together as a community of current and former NYU law students. We also want to take a moment to welcome the admitted students here tonight and say that we hope that by this time next year, we can count you as some of our members. As we've begun slowly creeping out of this past year of virtual life, Tina and I have stepped into our roles as co-presidents focused on fostering deep connections. We want to find ways for our new members to find home in law school. We want to help our old members deepen connections built virtually. And we wanted Law Women as an organization to focus on collaboration and to make intersectionality an active commitment. In this spirit, our programming has taken advantage of opportunities to be together in person and found ways to make virtual connections meaningful. We began this academic year with care packages to alleviate a stressful EIW, a week of action in response to SB 8, continuing our peer mentoring program, and panels and guides to help our members chart their professional paths. This semester, we want to build on this work through a new advocacy initiative for mothers in law school, forums for our members to talk about the issues that they care about, and continuing our mentorship programs with women in law firms. In addition, we are increasing wellness events to activate all facets of our members. Tonight, we look forward to hearing and learning from this year's alumni honoree, Chief Justice Bridget McCormick. Her remarks will surely bring up many compelling ideas. So please save your questions for the Q&A immediately afterward, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. For now, please join me in welcoming Dean Trevor Morrison.
Thanks, Io, and good evening to everyone, and welcome on behalf of the law school to this year's Law Women Alumni Reception. I'm also happy, as Io said, to welcome some admitted students to the audience this evening. And just as she said, we very much hope that you will become current students by next academic year, and we look forward to seeing you on campus. This event is a hallmark event for us every year at the law school. And even though conducted virtually this year, it's great that we can join as a community to celebrate the outstanding achievements of our NYU Law alumni in the law. Law Women as an organization encourages collaboration and conversation between and among women of all backgrounds at the law school and within the legal community. As you just heard, it serves as a really powerful and important peer group for current students, and it boasts a vast alumni network of women in the legal profession. And in fact, NYU Law has a long history about which we are very proud of encouraging women's leadership in the law. Our law school began admitting women to our JD program in 1890, which was decades before other top law schools, 18 years before Yale, 37 before Columbia, and 60 before Harvard, but who's counting? The law school has graduated many true pioneers in terms of women leaders in the law, from Rosalie Lowe Whitney, the class of 1895, who was the first woman lawyer to try a case before the New York Supreme Court and the first woman attorney-in-chief for the Legal Aid Society, to Judge Judith Kaye, class of 1962, who was the first woman chief judge of the state of New York, to more recent graduates like Sherilyn Ifill from the class of 1987, the president and director counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, to Vanita Gupta from the class of 2004, who currently serves as Associate Attorney General in the United States Department of Justice, and Ria Tobacco Marr, class of 2008, who is the director of the ACLU's Women's Rights Project, where she oversees the ACLU's women's rights litigation. Over the years, these are just a few examples, and over the years, our law school has graduated countless women who have become true leaders in the legal profession, on the judiciary, within government, in the business world, and in public service. And this year, we are thrilled to honor Chief Justice Bridget McCormick, class of 1991, as this year's honoree. She is, of course, the Chief Justice on the Michigan Supreme Court. Justice McCormack will be formally introduced in just a moment by Law Women Co-Chair Tina Loritz. But I do want to say personally how pleased I am, Justice McCormack, that you're joining us this evening, and thank you for accepting this award. And now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Law Women Co-Chair Tina Loritz. Tina.
Thank you, Dean Morrison, and thank you to everyone for attending tonight's event. As Ayo mentioned, we are so excited to virtually celebrate with you all and hear from our honoree about her inspiring journey through the legal field. It is my honor to present our 2022 Alumna of the Year Award to Chief Justice Bridget Mary McCormack. Our decision to honor Chief Justice McCormack comes in the wake of a turbulent year for women in the United States. 2021 saw a number of firsts. Kamala Harris became the first woman, Black, and South Asian American vice president. Kathy Hochul became the first woman governor of New York, and Michelle Wu became the first Asian American woman mayor of Boston, to name just a few. And today, we stand on the precipice of the anticipated appointment of the first Black woman to the Supreme Court. But this year, we also witnessed the continuation and emergence of significant threats to women's rights, including to their constitutional right to an abortion. Women like Chief Justice McCormack, who have not only dedicated their lives to promoting liberty and justice, but also work ardently to provide better opportunities for others to do the same, inspire us to continue working for a better, more equal tomorrow. It is for all these reasons and many more that Law Women chose to honor Chief Justice McCormack this year. Chief Justice McCormack joined the Michigan Supreme Court in January 2013 and became the Chief Justice in January 2019. An NYU law graduate, Chief Justice McCormack started her legal career in New York City. In 1996, she joined the Yale Law School faculty and then joined University of Michigan Law School in 1998. At Michigan, she taught criminal law, legal ethics, and various clinics, and was named Associate Dean for Clinical Affairs in 2002. Chief Justice McCormack created 8 new clinics at Michigan Law, addressing domestic violence, pediatric health advocacy, low-income taxpayers, human trafficking, and more. Chief Justice McCormack holds a plethora of notable positions in professional organizations. She was elected to the prestigious American Law Institute in 2013. A year later, the Attorney General of the United States appointed her to the National Commission on Forensic Sciences. In 2019, Governor Whitmer appointed her as co-chair of the Michigan Joint Task Force on Jail and Pretrial Incarceration. She was appointed to the ABA Council on Legal Education and Admission to the Bar in 2020, and also serves as an editor on the ABA's preeminent journal, Litigation. In 2021, Governor Whitmer appointed her as co-chair of the Michigan Task Force on Forensic Science, chair of the Michigan Jail Reform Advisory Council, and chair of the Michigan Judicial Council. Chief Justice McCormack also was appointed to serve nationally on the Council of State Governments, Healthy States National Task Force, and the ABA Center for Innovation Governing Council. She was also appointed chair of the ABA Board of Elections. Chief Justice McCormack continues to teach at the University of Michigan each year, as well as publish in professional journals and law media. She is married to Stephen Crowley, General Counsel and Chief Policy Officer at Ford Motor Company. They have 4 children. It is an immense privilege to hear about Chief Justice McCormack's legendary career and work. We are honored to have her here with us tonight. Please join me in welcoming Chief Justice Bridget Mary McCormack.
Thank you so much, Tina, for that really wonderful introduction, and Dean Morrison and Ayo for your remarks as well, and to Law Women for selecting me and honoring me tonight. It's really lovely, and I'm a little taken aback to hear myself described the way you just described me. I think I have had a somewhat atypical career, probably, for the kinds of folks you honor. But I've certainly been fortunate that I've had wonderful teachers and mentors from NYU Law School who were instrumental in cheering my non-traditional path. The short version that you didn't hear was my first job was as a legal aid attorney in New York City. And I was very happily in that job when the legal aid lawyers voted to go on strike in 1994, not for our own wages or benefits, but for our clients. And about 2 or 3 days into that strike, the mayor of New York, who was a man named Rudy Giuliani, who you may have heard of, fired all of us. He just canceled the legal aid's contract. So there I was without a job. And I was lucky enough to get another one at the Office of the Appellate Defender, but it was a temporary job. And then I got another one at Yale Law School, teaching in their clinical programs. And that led me to the University of Michigan Law School on a permanent faculty position. But all of that, as you can tell, was a little bit random. I don't think if I had been fired in 1994, I might not have made it to Michigan. So it was a series of random events that put me in a position to be leading the judiciary in a very large and diverse state in January of 2019. State Supreme Courts play really interesting roles in our legal community. And I know at excellent law schools like NYU and like Michigan, where I have been teaching for a couple of decades now, we focus a lot on federal courts and federal decision-making, but most cases are litigated in state courts. 95% of criminal cases, 95% of civil cases are litigated in state courts, and state Supreme Courts therefore decide incredibly important issues that affect the citizens in their states. But in addition to our decision-making role, state Supreme Courts have constitutional administrative oversight of all the courts of the state. And that constitutional administrative oversight role is a tremendous opportunity to make a difference for the people we serve, for the people who need justice, for the people who have justice problems. Just to give you a sense of what I mean by the scope of that, in Michigan courts, we adjudicate almost 4 million cases every year. And most of the folks that have to come to court because they need some justice, or somebody wants some justice from them, are navigating really difficult problems, often without lawyers. Debt collection cases, eviction cases, family law cases, post-conviction fines and fees cases. Most people are navigating those really important justice issues without lawyers. It's an enormous problem for our profession, for our society. We've been talking about it my whole career, the number of people who can't afford lawyers and have to navigate justice problems. And like in many other places, in Michigan, I was proud of the work we were doing before March of 2020. I want to talk a little bit about the before times and the after times to address those issues. I was chairing a bipartisan task force on jail and pretrial incarceration to try and understand why Michigan's county jail populations had tripled over the last 30 years, even though crime was at a 50-year low. And we were able to come to a consensus set of recommendations that, if enacted, would make Michigan a national leader in jail and pretrial reform. It was hard work because we have no statewide data. That's true of many states, but it's especially true here in Michigan. But we were lucky to have the help of the Pew Charitable Trust and goodwill of a lot of stakeholders around the table. We had a lot of efforts to address the civil justice gap. We have, I think, the best self-help website in the country, michiganlegalhelp.org. It also has navigators and law students who answer questions, and a chat tool, and forms that populate with for self-represented litigants. It's a wonderful resource. But we also were working with the State Bar on a Justice for All task force to try and figure out some new and innovative ways to break through in providing access to civil justice for the very many people in Michigan who can't afford lawyers. We stood up online dispute resolution in 17 of Michigan's 83 counties. It is absolutely free. The platform is asynchronous, and people could choose to resolve civil legal problems on that platform from their smartphone whenever it is convenient for them, without paying any costs or trying to figure out how to get to court and navigate it. They could do it with a mediator or without. Those were all innovative, that was all innovative work in civil justice, and we were proud of it, and we were plugging along and hoping to continue to make progress. We have more treatment courts than any of our neighboring states, and more veterans treatment courts than any state in the country. We were working on trying to figure out how to make restorative justice a process that everybody can avail themselves of, not just the lucky few who could find their ways into treatment courts. We were rolling out tech solutions for court users all around the state, text reminders so people could remember when they had a court date or owed a fine or a fee. It turns out that the single thing most likely to predict whether someone comes back to court is not whether they have a job or they have ties to the community, it's whether they get a text reminder. So we should give them a text reminder. And we were building that in-house at the Michigan Supreme Court and supplying it to the courts around the state. But there were challenges to statewide reform. All of those efforts had big hurdles in front of them. The infrastructure that ties courts together is incredibly janky. Michigan has 242 trial courts, almost 600 judges that answer to 132 different funding units and therefore have different computer systems. There are 16 different case management systems statewide. That makes collecting data statewide almost impossible. In addition to that, to get more additional funding, I have to go to another branch of government and convince them why we need it. And on top of that, lawyers and judges are not great at change. It's not our strong suit. And then a year into my role as Chief Justice, we had a global pandemic, and I don't have to tell you any more about that because you all know it well. And that meant all of a sudden lawyers and judges and courts had to change everything we did on a dime. We had a bit of an advantage in Michigan because we had already purchased Zoom licenses for all the judges in the state, not because we were prescient and saw a pandemic coming, but rather because Michigan is enormous geographically, and it made sense to us to try and figure out how to do some legal proceedings on remote platforms. Now, that doesn't mean any judges were using those Zoom licenses, they weren't, but we had the hardware and the software to turn what we did into remote platforms pretty quickly. It was an interesting time, and I have said in a number of contexts, it was the disruption we needed. We had to figure out how to innovate and collaborate with people we don't normally collaborate with, and we had to be willing to try new things and fail again without ever going to business school. And despite all the difficulties, we've seen more change in our courthouses and our courtrooms in the last 2 years than in a century, by a lot. We stood up that online dispute resolution platform that was in 17 counties in every other county in Michigan. So it's now in 83 counties throughout the state, and everybody can access it for free if they want to. Our Justice for All task force produced the most innovative and exciting access to justice plan for the state that I think exists in the country. And I say that with a little bit of authority because I chair the National Justice for All effort, and there are 13 other Justice for All states also doing pretty cool things, but I think Michigan's plan is the most exciting and innovative of them all. They're working on simplification of forms and friendly courthouse spaces and regulatory reform and lots of other advances that would find a way to deliver solutions, information, and help to people who have justice problems and can't afford lawyers. The jail and task force recommendations were delivered to the legislature in the middle of the pandemic. And by December of 2020, the legislature sent 20 bipartisan bills to the governor's desk, and she signed all of them. And that has made Michigan a national leader in jail and pretrial reform. We did the same thing with expungement. We passed the most progressive expungement statute in the country. Michigan now will have automatic expungement for more convictions than any other state in the country, also with bipartisan support. the court hearings on remote platforms, I think we've just passed 5 million hours of remote hearings in our Zoom courtrooms. We stood up a tool that's a map of the state of Michigan, and you can click on any county and see which judges are working in their remote courtrooms, and you can click right on the live stream and watch what's happening in those courtrooms. And we learned things that we didn't predict. We learned that default rates in cases where people represent themselves go down when you offer them a remote option. It makes sense, of course, in hindsight, but the kinds of barriers that keep people from going to court for an eviction case or a debt collection case, or sometimes a post-conviction fine or fee matter, are sometimes removed when they have a remote option. If they have transportation problems, if they have childcare, if they're at work and can't get a day off and they have a remote option, they now can appear. So default rates dropped. In addition to that, we were able to try other new things that just wouldn't have been possible without an emergency. We put the entire state into an eviction diversion program. We were the first state to do that. We modeled it over a lot of local eviction diversion programs that had been working well for some time in Michigan, and the legislature and the governor worked with us for funding and resources. And other states then copied what we did. Big states, Texas. We had all kinds of collaboration and innovation at the local level, at the state level, and even across states. That I've never seen before in my career. There are still hurdles. We don't yet have a statewide case management system. And just to put in context what an enormous hurdle that is, if we would like to collect one additional field of data, this fall we were interested in collecting from trial courts in guardianship cases, the piece of information about whether the guardian a court had assigned was a certified guardian, something that it would be nice to know about those cases in our state. And to add that one field across 16 case management systems was going to cost us $500,000. That's pretty inefficient. At the same time, collecting statewide data is nearly impossible. I can't tell you right now how many eviction cases are pending in Michigan. That doesn't make any sense. I am extremely happy today because the governor released her budget yesterday, and I've been advocating for this for 3 years now, and recommended $175 million to fund a statewide case management system in Michigan, which will be a game changer for collecting data about what happens in our courts and making smarter decisions about policy, about what we want to do with it. So there's lots of good news in state courts. State court leaders in red states, blue states, and purple states have been collaborating and working very hard to improve the quality and the quantity of justice their states deliver. And with this constitutional administrative oversight role, they have wide lanes to do that. And a lot of them are doing really, really incredible work. But it wouldn't be an entirely complete story if I didn't also say that it's not always easy. Not everyone embraces change. And when you are advocating for it, you can sometimes be the target of those who are unhappy with it. And sometimes you become the target for reasons that have nothing at all to do with the work or the change and everything to do with who you are. And some of the backlash that has emerged is unsettling. Not only in Michigan, I have become very close to a group of women chief justices, Ohio, Indiana, DC, Puerto Rico, Republicans and Democrats who have had similar experiences. I've developed lots of new habits about what not to read online, and lots of new tools for how to deal with what feel like personal and non-substantive criticisms of some of the work. My kids keep giving me meditation app subscriptions for birthdays. But in addition to strong women colleagues on my own court, and I have 3 of them and they're wonderful, and other courts in the country, I want to make sure you also know how many men have been tremendous allies to me too. From very senior in our profession to very, very junior, and not only in the profession. The Chief Justice of Texas has become a very close friend of mine. He is doing really important work on access to justice, and he is a wonderful colleague and supporter and ally. Professor Marty Guggenheim at NYU Law School was my, I was his research assistant and took every class I could take with him, and have remained close to him for, I guess it's been 30 years since I graduated law school, don't like saying it out loud, and has been a wonderful supporter, mentor, friend, and ally over the years. There are lots more. And I wanted to make sure I said that too. It's a really exciting time to be starting out as lawyers. I'm kind of jealous of you all. I wish I was a 1L or a 2L or a 3L. There's so much up for grabs. So much that feels possible right now that didn't feel possible 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 3 years ago. And so much that needs to be done. There is so much room for new, big ideas about how we might deliver better justice to more people. Thank you so much for honoring me. It means the world to me. I'm grateful.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. So we have a few questions prepared from registrant submissions, and we welcome everyone else to put questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom screen if you have follow-ups and further questions. So you've been involved in a wide range of projects relating to legal education, forensic science, and criminal law, litigation, and much more. What drove you to pursue these opportunities, and what advice would you give to young law students who are attempting to discern what types of law or interest areas they're passionate about? Yeah,
I wish I had a more sophisticated answer to the what drove me. I think I'm a little bit ADD. I'm interested in lots of ways in which our profession falls short. And so anytime I had an opportunity to do some work on one of those gaps or one of those areas, I was interested in it. So I spent 15 years teaching clinics, and I was the associate dean for clinics at Michigan, and I really loved founding new clinics where really smart law students could focus on sticky problems that the bar wasn't able to spend a lot of time on for all kinds of reasons. And same for some of the systemic problems in the criminal and civil legal systems. There are just places where a lot of work needs to be done, and I find myself attracted to those places. Advice, I guess if I have advice, it's don't be too set on a specific plan. As you heard from my story, a number of random events, I think led me through most parts of my career. And in any of my previous jobs, I would have told you I was extremely happy and satisfied and lucky and wasn't looking for another job, and something presents itself, and it will for you all too, because you're incredibly talented. You're at a wonderful law school. You're going to have so many opportunities. I would leave a lot, let yourself continue to be curious about what comes along. There's going to be even more that's going to come along for you, and you're going to be able to build what you want to build. I'm telling you, so much more is possible right now. There are so many barriers that are just coming down. It feels to me like a Jenga game in our profession right now, and like people are pulling the blocks out like one by one, and it might soon kind of all topple and you can rebuild something better. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you. That was really insightful. Our next question is, in addition to serving as Chief Justice, a professor, an associate dean, and a critical contributor to legal theory, among many other roles, you are also a mother. Within NYU Law Women, we often think about how motherhood affects our current and future careers trajectories and the unique challenges that women face as a result. Can you speak to the experience of bearing and raising 4 children while maintaining a career?
Yeah, this is such an important one because I think it causes a lot of people a lot of stress. And I want to say here too, don't stress about it. I mean, I once wrote this piece for this essay for the Litigation Journal, and I think the title was "There is no work-life balance." And because I worry a little bit that everybody who thinks they have to find work-life balance is always going to feel like a failure, because it never works out in the day by day or week by week or even month by month. There were times in my career, my oldest son had epilepsy and had a number of pretty serious seizures in 3rd grade, 4th grade, all the way through 8th grade. And there were periods there where his health was definitely more important than my work. It just was. And I think I was a mediocre teacher some of those semesters, and probably a mediocre lawyer. And I felt very grateful that I had great colleagues who were able to, support and help and stand in when needed. When I was running for statewide office the first time in 2012, Michigan is a really big state, has a whole other part above the bridge up there. It's like, huge. And none of our kids could drive yet. I think the oldest was like 13 or 14 maybe. And my husband was working in DC during the week. And so I was a somewhat mediocre mother that year, I think. I mean, I still remember, like, at the end of the campaign, we went for a walk with all the kids and we asked them, we sometimes would bring them to the campaign office and had them do things. They were terrible at it. They made a game out of who could keep somebody on the phone longest, which is exactly the opposite of what you want to do at a phone bank. You're supposed to get through as many numbers as possible. And they were having a competition about who could keep somebody on the phone longest. But they said on our walk, when my husband asked them what they had learned, they almost in unison, or one of them said it and they all quickly agreed, "Oh, we learned how to hitch rides with strangers," which was kind of true. But it's a life skill, I think, like anything else. They all seem fine. I mean, everybody's okay. I was not always the best, at everything. And I think you balance it out over the course of a career, over the course of a life, and you'll know when your kids need you, and you'll know when they're okay for you to drive to Muskegon and back in a day.
Yeah, that is really refreshing to hear. So thank you. So for our next question, we have President Biden's promise to nominate a Black woman to the Supreme Court has sparked debate about the role identity should play in judicial appointments. What role do you see judges playing in society, and should identity be a factor considered when deciding who should become a judge? And related, should we have a rule of gender parity in every judicial bench?
I think it's really important that our bench reflects our communities. The thing about the courts is the only currency we have is the public's confidence in what we do. If the public doesn't have confidence that the justice that we deliver is fair to everybody, it kind of all falls apart. We don't have currency, we don't have an army, we don't have anything to back up our orders. The rule of law is just a set of ideas. It's really only as good as the public's confidence in it. And critical to public confidence is that we're delivering on a promise of equal justice under law. And if the bench reflects our communities, and if it really is drawn from our communities, it goes a long way to increasing the public's confidence in what we do. So gender parity sounds great, but we have 4 women and 3 men, and that's great too.
We have a question maybe from an admitted student, but what are the vital ingredients to being a good lawyer?
That's a great question. And there are so many different ways to be a lawyer. But I think, I think I answered this question a little differently today than I might have when I graduated from law school. And I definitely would have thought when I graduated law school that my answer was a good one. And I thought that I was going to work on the things that I thought a good lawyer needed to do. Being a good counselor, being a problem solver, being thoughtful, careful, patient, hardworking, all the things that you might imagine. And then there are different subsets of skills if you're a litigator versus somebody who's doing deals versus somebody who's in-house advising a client. But I think now good lawyers need to be good collaborators. We're not going to solve the biggest problems in our profession without collaborating with people outside it. And I don't mean just technologists, although I do mean technologists. But I also mean the people who are impacted by what we do. We have for too long thought that we could figure out what makes a good lawyer, and we're not enough. We're not enough. We need to collaborate with people outside of our profession. I think that's critical.
You spoke about how technology and moving to virtual platforms has changed in a lot of ways, really benefited the judicial system in Michigan. How do you think the legal profession as a whole is going to evolve with the increasing use of technology? I mean, just generally, what kind of impacts do you see it having across the board?
It's such a great question, and it's gosh, it's up for grabs. I mean, every state in the country had to move to remote platforms. Some were slower than others. I think, remember in March 2020 when we all thought like maybe it'll be a few weeks, and we'd be back to normal. There were lots of judges who really resisted figuring out remote platforms because they really thought, it was going to be short-lived. And there are definitely still judges and some lawyers, fewer lawyers than judges, doing what Richard Susskind calls hunkering and hankering, hunkering down, hoping it passes, and hankering for the way things used to be. But it's not going to happen. It's another one of the Jenga pieces that's come out, because now that we know, in my view, that we know that default rates for evictions and debt collection cases go down, we can't turn away from that, right? If we care about the people we serve, and we know that this additional tool gives a lot of them a way to get justice, we can't turn away from it. So technology is going to be part of what courts do going forward. It should be part of what lawyers do going forward as well. There are not that many lawyers who embrace it. Lawyers have done such a good job of avoiding sort of the tech revolution that's come for every other industry. And we've been able to do it for lots of reasons. Some of them are cultural, some of them are normative, some of them are actually legal, right? We're a profession committed to rules that were made in the past. That allows us to, continue to, or it has allowed us to live in this insular way and practice in this insular way that I think this pandemic broke through. What it's going to look like is anybody's guess, and it's where there's going to be a lot of exciting things going on for all of you and your generation. I mean, if you're interested in legal tech at all, there are so many interesting conversations in that world happening right now, and I encourage you to follow them and get involved in them, because that's where the future is.
Yeah, definitely. I think as we're learning about Zoom and learning how our legal education changes as well in this remote environment, I think we can all agree that there's been some things that have been really beneficial, but it's a very exciting time for sure. I'd like to invite anyone, if they have further questions, to put them in the chat. We have a few more minutes if people would like to chime in. I'll ask one more in the meantime while we give people a chance, but what was your favorite job?
Great question. I loved every job I ever had. I did. I loved being a public defender. That's the greatest job in the world. And then I love being a law professor, because that's also the greatest job in the world. And the opportunity I have right now to make sort of enormous change for people in my state, the people who need it most, is such an honor. And it's a pretty great job too. So I mean, I've just been so stupid lucky. It's really, you know, not fair, but I have had, every job has been a great job. I've been very, very lucky.
That's fantastic. Well, I don't think we have any more questions in the chat. So I will turn it over to Io for our closing remarks. Thank you so much, Chief Justice. It was great speaking with you.
Thank you. Thanks for moderating the questions. I appreciated that.
All right, we want to take a moment to thank you all for joining us tonight. And we also want to give a special thanks to the Office of Development and Alumni Relations and Kelly Spencer for organizing this wonderful event. Thank you to Dean Morrison and to the Birnbaum Women's Leadership Network. Lastly, thank you so much, Chief Justice Bridget McCormick, for taking the time to share your story, honest insight, which is refreshing, and perspective. As we begin to emerge from the pandemic, it has become even more clear that we are still renegotiating what our society looks like. We hope to see a world where women continue to be at the forefront of making post-pandemic life more equitable. Law Women is committed to equipping the next generation of incredible women with the tools, connections, and resources to step into these roles. We can't wait to see what you do with them. Again, thank you all so much for coming tonight, and have a great rest of your night.